last month that imposed new limits on federal agencies when they issue regulations about a wide variety of issues, including the environment and consumer protection. Jason Isaac is CEO of the American Energy Institute and former Texas state representative, joining me now with more. Jason, thanks for coming on today.
Let me.
So, I think one of the biggest deals here is that this was a duly decided Supreme Court ruling. This was something that they took great consideration over. The plaintiffs and the defendants in the case actually presented evidence before them, and much went into this. It wasn't just a snap ruling based on political ideology. The fact that this has been overturned means that Congress actually has to move and act. And I suppose the Democrats are acknowledging the reality that we all know, which is they don't want to.
No, the Democrats and Senator Warren, who's filed this bill to basically give the deep state the power that it so desperately wants to hold on to, but the Supreme Court rightfully so stripped away with their ruling on the Chevron deference. And now Congress, when they pass laws, are actually going to have to be extremely specific in those laws and not give the deep state, the fourth branch of government, if you will, the power that they love. And so I think this is a great move. It's actually going to result in so many regulations likely being pulled back because you had people that you and I didn't elect to serve us, putting things into law that are increasing our cost of living, increasing everything that we depend on in our daily lives, and for no environmental impact, for no impact and benefit to our country. It's really quite honestly to the benefit of China and to Russia and to the Saudis. To our complete detriment. So I'm really excited about this. I'm optimistic about the future of getting rid of some of these overburdensome regulations.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, it seems to be a bit of a race. If you look at the way that the Democrats are moving here, they're wasting no time in putting this bill forward. Senator Elizabeth Warren and several other Democrats, they call it the Stop Corporate Capture Act. They want to checkmate SCOTUS's recent decision. They want to get this work done. They want to get this bill passed and start putting this into their messaging as a part of their bully pulpit for this election cycle, as opposed to waiting until the possible election of Kamala Harris or the election of Donald Trump to fight that war in a new presidential administration. Is that an indicator of how seriously they take this?
Well, I think it's quite honestly a distraction because they realize that the Senate is split 50-50, and Senator Manchin's certainly not going to support Senator Warren's effort to embolden the deep state any more than they already are. The House certainly isn't going to do this, although the president, Biden, would certainly sign something if it were to pass. It's just a complete distraction from the issues before us, much like Senator or President Biden's effort to, dismantle and really disarm the Supreme Court with his proposals that he's come out with in the last couple of days. I really think this is a distraction to distract the American people from learning more about this new candidate that's on the ballot for the Democrat Party that no one voted for.
So you went there, and I'm really, this is why we love it when you come on the show, because I'm telling you, I thought to myself, that's odd because they don't have the Senate, they don't have the votes, and I for a second I had a little bit of fear that gripped me for 5 seconds. I was like, do they have enough rhinos in the U.S. Senate to actually get this overturned? And then I thought, no way. There's no way in an election year the rhinos would act against the party. They're really good at doing that when they have a Republican president. That's their favorite thing to do. So they're not going to do that on this. So I was trying to figure out what could possibly be the reason Senator Elizabeth Warren would act so quickly to file legislation. It's almost as if she had her staff working on this day and night and had help from, the minions and legions of individuals that they have to help them craft legislation quickly. And then I realized, well, Kamala's not popular. She wasn't voted for by the Democrat electorate. She didn't win a primary. When she ran as president before, she didn't win the primary then. She didn't even make it to New Hampshire. There's so much about her candidacy that is really built up on a house of lies. Really, it's a very thinly created deck of cards that's stacked up ever so gingerly, and any part of it, any whiff of the truth blows it all down. And then there's also Reuters is reporting that since Loper Bright was decided on July 1st, you have at least 6 lower court judges appointed by Republican presidents citing the Supreme Court's holding in a series of rulings that block new rules that have been adopted. So the ripple effect, the dominoes are beginning to fall a little faster every week since the ruling.
Yeah, and at the American Energy Institute, we're just beginning to peel the layers back of the onion because there's been a lot of states that have cited the Chevron deference in their regulatory efforts and their overburdensome regulations that they've been passing on to people. Things like what Kamala Harris supported when she was the Attorney General in California, the cap and trade program. That, interestingly enough, there's a lawsuit in the state of California now. It's called the 200 versus the California Air Resources Board versus the state of California that are suing, saying that the environmental policies like cap and trade, like the EV mandates, violate the Civil Rights Act, that they have a disproportionate impact on communities of color because they increase the cost of living, they increase the cost of cars, they increase the cost of everything. And those are the policies that are being threatened by the Supreme Court ruling, and rightfully so, because wouldn't it be nice to go back to the Trump administration where every American family was saving on average $2,500? And because of policies supported by Kamala Harris, whether it was back when she was the DA in San Francisco and now as the vice president, have increased the cost of living and wiped out that $2,500 savings and replaced it with an increase of over $5,000 in everything to the American family. And that's mostly tied to her attacks and the attacks on energy.
Yeah. Which if we could just think about this for 5 seconds, this impacts every area of our lives. And what Americans aren't hearing is, number one, what you just shared so eloquently and succinctly, the connection between Kamala Harris and her policies, things that she has supported and actually pushed, and the connection, well, it's a disconnect with Congress. They don't do their jobs. They pass big bills with vague language, and then they allow this rulemaking. And then since Chevron's been overturned, I mean, it impacts everyone. There's a Department of Labor adopting a rule that interpreted ERISA to allow retirement plan managers to consider the economic effects of climate change and other environmental, social, and governance factors in the event that competing investment options equally serve the financial interests of the plan. So if you have two plans that are similar and your financial manager for your 401k or your retirement system is thinking of picking one or the other, they are allowed to say, I'm choosing this plan because these people adhere to ESG, which could mean that that plan is not as well managed and will not yield the kind of investment return that people want to see. And you're saving money for your retirement. You're going to live on this. This is one of the most crucial decisions that people would think this manager would make for them on their behalf. And this Chevron doctrine was allowing them to do that against the will of the people who are investing. So when we talk about how serious Chevron is and how it could change your life for the better not to have the Chevron deference, I mean, Elizabeth Warren is really, she's got a lot of gall. I always think of her when I used to love her. She had this book, The Two Income Trap. And I read that as a young mom with small kids at home. And it helped bolster my decision to be a stay-at-home mom full time and not work while the kids were little and daycare was expensive. It's probably the only good public policy thing she's ever done is writing that book. And now that she's a radical Democrat, it's so difficult to watch her take these actions when I know deep in there somewhere is the same woman who wrote that book. It's kind of amazing. But what should people do? Because this is now becoming basically it's fertile ground for lawsuits, it looks like to me.
Yeah, it really is. And I think what politicians need to do and the general public needs to recognize is that energy isn't just a part of our economy. It is the center of our economy. It is the heart and the pulse of our economy. Every single other industry is heavily dependent, and rightfully so, on the American energy industry. And we produce energy more responsibly than anywhere else on the planet. We're world leaders in clean air. We've reduced pollution in this country nearly 80% over the last 5 decades. We're number one when it comes to access to clean and safe drinking water. And that's all made possible by the access to affordable and reliable energy. And shouldn't the rest of the world get to experience that? I think so. And politicians and the general public need to embrace that. And they need to recognize that the EPA's violent attacks against carbon dioxide, a gas that's necessary for life on Earth, is just absolutely not rooted in math, science, or facts. And it is a political agenda. It's really a religion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. We're running out of time here, which is usual for you and I. Thank you so much, CEO of American Energy Institute and former Texas State Representative. Amazing to have you here today.
Thanks for having me on.
All right.